All right, Chaz, welcome back to The Grit, fueled by drinkag1.com/surf, always.
I think this show is going to be better than ever because I just finished my drinkag1/surf and I'm feeling fit, mentally acute, or is it mentally astute?
Acute, I think, well, either works, but acute would be the more appropriate, I think.
That's what I'm feeling.
Well, we will be the judge of that. How's life been back at home since Cabo? Did you make your flight safely last week?
Made flight safely. The wife hopped on a flight straight up to Seattle, so it's just been getting used to home life again. But yeah, kid, there's no rest for the weary here. Kid goes straight into 5-hour-a-day ballets right away.
Wow.
There's no summer break for ballet, man.
That's insane. And your wife never quits either. I think your kid gets it from your wife.
Yeah, just the go, go, go. Except poor wife, just tarred with the brush of Beachgrit yesterday. Painted.
Apparently. Me too, apparently. Jesus. I just happened, I'm like, well, before we push record, I should just see what's going on Beachgrit. And so I perused the most recent articles, and I was surprised to see that. Give the listeners a rundown. And is your wife depressed? Is she in recovery mode now? How's she feel about the whole thing?
She's in a dark, dark place after the Committee for Equity and Women's Surfing put her in the crosshairs. It's a bold war against women that the Committee for Equity and Women's Surfing has started down the path of. They really love to lower the cannon and just take women out. They've gone after Jessie Miley Dyer. They've gone after Bethany Hamilton. They've gone after Kayla Kenley. And apparently yesterday it was the wife's turn for the misogynistic garbage that she writes and publishes on Beachgrit.
Has she ever written anything on Beachgrit?
Not one word. I went into the users yesterday just to see if she had ever, even 5 years ago, penned something. She has never written one thing on Beachgrit. Is probably genuinely not that pleased with everything that goes up. She doesn't even read Beachgrit, right? So to get the libel. Old Surf Equity's got a libel case on their hands here for publishing untrue things. Well, demonstrably untrue.
But if they're about equity, why would they be shaming her?
I mean, they love, I don't know, because Beachgrit's misogynistic, I guess, in their view. I mean...
But if they're about equity, then why would they be shaming Beachgrit? Even if Beachgrit is misogynistic, shouldn't they have grace for Beachgrit? Because misogynists exist in the world as well.
No. Misogynists, everyone who thinks... This point of view may surprise you, but anyone who doesn't think exactly like whoever the surf equity people think, then is dutifully beheaded. Marched to the public square and chopped.
I'm going to have to freshen up my definition of equity. I thought it meant something else.
No, you're wrong. Equity means think exactly what I think. In the exact same way I think, and then you still maybe get axed, but, maybe we can kind of walk on the same side together for a minute.
I had it backwards all these years.
It's weird. It's really weird, yeah. I mean, you should... I would hope that you take this moment to learn and grow and... get the right definition.
Yeah, I'll try my hardest. What is Surf Equity? What is it, like a nonprofit company? Are they generating any?
Okay. No, I think it's a nonprofit. I think that they think themselves involved in women's surfing issues like equal pay stuff and or like getting girls into Mavericks. I think they feel like they're tied in there somehow, though I don't know that it actually does anything, to be honest.
Well, you know what I've decided after seeing that article, and also this
What was that picture of you, by the way? The picture they used of you was classy.
Yeah, thank you. It was in Cuba.
Nice.
I know. In that brief moment of time where Cuba opened up, to the U.S., it was less than a year, I feel like, 6 months or 9 months or something like that.
You were smart to hop on that.
I know. And the smartest part about that was I mentioned it on the podcast before going. And there had been 3 or 4 listeners who had been. One of them owns a clothing company here called Cleo Bella. They're pretty big actually now, but they had just done a photo shoot for Cleobella there, so they did all of this scouting. They had been to like the best restaurants and all of this. So he gave me like this rundown of an itinerary for their successes, their missteps, all that sort of stuff. So I went into that 5-day trip with a real solid outline for what to do, and we lived it up. It was epic.
Did Cuba exceed expectations?
Completely, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so sad that I missed that window.
Well, it was a really interesting thing because the people of Cuba were so excited to have essentially tourism, but essentially tourism commerce coming to their town. But the government wasn't so open to it. So it was weird little things like the Airbnb lady asked us to pay her in cash instead of running it. Like we found her on Airbnb and maybe inquired first, and she's like, hey, don't run the transaction through Airbnb, just show up and pay me and I'll give you a better rate and stuff like that. But they were the people of Cuba were super gracious and grateful, and it was so inexpensive. Like I think we budgeted, and that you can't pull money out of the ATM there, and they don't take American dollars, so you had to get Cuban currency before going.
Oh, before going.
And bring it with you.
Okay.
There was no exchanging once you're there.
That's
and
tough.
And most places don't take credit cards or plastic, so you really needed a plan. But we basically budgeted, it was 2 of us, we went for 5 days. We budgeted, I think, $500, like $100 a day. And then we brought an additional 500, knowing like this is an emergency fund in case we get stuck there or something like that. But the advice was to budget about $100 a day and you'll have plenty of money left over. So $100 would cover, taxi cabs, bike rentals, plus food and all that sort of stuff. We drank, heavily, let's say, a couple cocktails with each meal, maybe some wine or whatever, go to the fanciest restaurant, order appetizers, dessert, entrees, whatever, bill would be less than $20.
Wow. I gotta get there today.
I know.
Were you smoking a picture and drinking a Belgian ale like I
it's
surmised?
Funny. No, that was a good guess because the color is so bad on that picture that you can't really tell. It was a straw that I was using, and it was like a daiquiri or some sort of Cuban drink. It wasn't a mojito, but it was like some sort of daiquiri.
I'm glad that you were keeping... It's always weird to me when people go to a climate or a culture and then totally go off-piste with the drinks. Like, it'd be like going to, I don't know, going to London and like really insisting on drinking margaritas. Or going to...
Or Mexico... where people drink margaritas and insisting on... Yeah, exactly.
It's always important, I think, to keep your drink culturally sensitive.
When in Rome, they say.
Yep, exactly. Well, hopefully the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing can go after the lower income females in Cuba. Hopefully they can really find some way to really pick those ones off.
You know what I've decided, though? After reading that article, or not reading it, but skimming it, and then also the whole Jonah Hill debacle this last week, Sarah Brady, which you and I will get into. I really think it's just all misunderstanding nowadays. First, I thought everybody is dumb nowadays, and then I thought about it a second further, and I go, it's just misunderstanding. People are as dumb as they've always been, but they're spending a tiny bit less time trying to understand fellow man or fellow woman. And so they're just misunderstanding what that person is trying to say. There's an element of having no grace either for the fact that somebody might feel differently than you. And so they're so eager to jump on and, attack.
I hear you. It's a combination, I feel, of misunderstanding, of stupidity, misunderstanding, and then a real feeling of righteousness. Also,
it's a bad combination.
Yeah, it's of personal, like, what you said was wrong. I'm not going to spend any time to think about it. I'm just going to pile on as much as I can.
Totally.
Weird.
The other thing is there's no consequence. Because when I was young, there was consequence. If you got something wrong or you said something that was such a willful misunderstanding of the other person's point of view, they would punch you in the face.
Yeah. I mean, we had a wonderful commenter on the Beachgrit story on the one that I wrote, who's from Japan. He said this stuff doesn't happen in Japan because there's actual consequences. You can't just go tar people like this. This is illegal, and it doesn't even matter if it's true. Like, if you're going expressly to defame somebody, then that's defamation and you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, that's fascinating. They are better people than we are, I think, in a lot of ways.
They are. I mean, no, we are.
Japanese come up later in a story, a Prose in the Wild submission that we got this week.
Great.
So we'll get to that. How's your time today? Do you have to get out of here at a certain
I'm
time?
good. I'm
Okay,
good.
cool. Because we got lots of submissions, so
Great.
we'll run long. But the first thing is that Elo send-off following Eric Logan's departure from the WSL. Somebody wrote in to say, no doubt there will be much to say about Elo's demise and the uncertain future of the WSL. But what concerns me, however, is the rom-com moment that may or may not occur. When all is quiet and Elo's stint at the WSL has become history, what will become of our hero from Oklahoma? Will he wake up early in the quiet of his well-appointed beach home, grab his surfboard and go surfing? Just go surfing? Did surfing actually get its hooks into him the way that it did for all of us? Was it love underneath it all? If so, I say bravo. Let him now press himself forward without the crown to face the ocean, the lineups, and whatever may come in honest journey. As Chaz might say, much to consider.
Mm-hmm.
So
Here.
So the question is, do you think Elo actually ever loved surfing, or was it all just a charade?
I mean, the thing is, that's a great question, to
Isn't
be
it?
honest. I think so. It's a really great question. He still has he changed on his Instagram bio, he dropped World Surf League CEO, appropriately. But it still says, like, whatever, approaching life one wave at a time, right? Where I wonder if he has made, at this point, so much of his persona around surfing that even if he does want to back away, it'll be, realizing that, I think you realize that as a older you get, right? As a kid or a younger person, I think you could think, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to be a horseback rider. Okay, a couple of years later, oh, well, that wasn't really fun. I'm going to be a skateboarder, right? You could try different hats on of like your pastime or what your pastime was going to be. I think the older you get though, like it's foolish to do a hard shift now, right? Like Elo has been projecting himself and talking about it and been surfing for at least the last, let's say seriously for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know he was a full-on supper before then. And before, like, full-on sup. He didn't get on a normal surfboard until midway through his tenure at the World Surf League. And even that's new.
The supping was only 1 or 2 years old when he discovered surfing. So
completely.
All told, he's less than 10 years in.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a great question. Did it get its hooks in that deep, or will it now just be a hassle? Will it be? I think he has like investment. Doesn't he? Isn't he invested in like Infinity surfboards or Infinity? One of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is Infinity. So I think I have the answer to that question actually.
Okay.
Well, since his time at Oprah Winfrey, since he left that, is he still reading Maya Angelou and watching Tyler Perry films?
To be honest, that wouldn't surprise me. He seems like the kind of guy who would curl up with a warm blanket and put on some Tyler Perry, put on Madea.
Madea. You're right. He does. Yeah. But
yeah,
okay, fine. We've answered it. Then I'm saying he's going back to stand up. He's going to finish Medea's family reunion tonight and then wake up tomorrow and go stand up paddling.
Yeah, that's I think that is natively and naturally who he is. I think in his core. If we may talk about Elo for 2 more seconds.
Sure.
Again, and I know this is my job to get to the truth. And let me assure you, dear listener, I have worked harder on this than I have worked on anything surf-related journalism-wise in my entire career, right? I have gone after people. I have gone after people's people. I have gone after any kind of angle I can find my way in. I've gone to Elo. I've gone to Jesse. I've gone to Dave Prodan. I've gone to people who I knew wouldn't answer, but leaving no stone unturned in this one, right? The continued silence about it is one thing. It's, annoying as a journalist. But every day that passes without answer, without anything from the World Surf League, continues to show this is the major problem is, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the World Surf League hates its audience. It actively despises its audience. It treats them like brainless robots who are going to come and watch this show no matter what they put on. They don't have to give any truth. They don't have to give any quality. They don't have to do anything because they hate their audience, which I think that's why when, something happens in the NBA, when there's a scandal in the NFL, when there's something that needs to be discussed, a cheating scandal, anything in Major League Baseball, the fan is apprised of what is happening and what's going on, not just because journalists are better and digging further. It's because the leagues themselves know that their fans are the engine behind the whole thing and know they can't despise their fan. And so give their fan what the fan needs to adjust. World Surf League's hatred of its own fan, to me, is a story in and of itself. And the fact that there's no lawsuit thing, right? I mean, there may be a lawsuit between ELO, but there's nothing preventing. Somebody doesn't get brutally fired with no press release as to even a hint of why, right?
Yeah.
That absolutely does not happen. So the fact that they don't even deign the smallest of, it was very easily could say it was a personal conduct matter, or it was on a financial matter or something. Nothing.
And it would be one thing too if it was like Sophie Goldschmidt, who was a quiet CEO who didn't even have any social media presence. If she quietly went away, then we'd almost not even inquire about it.
No,
but the fact that Elo paraded himself in front of all of us, masquerading the whole thing, it's like, and then they vanquish him, and then no explanation. You're entirely right.
It's a disdain. And I've seen notes, and I've texted with Dave Prodan, right? But just the not getting it, I think, of nothing.
Say more. What did you said that you reached out to Eric? Did you reach out to him via text, email, and what did he say?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, it's all crickets to Eric. No, it's nothing. I just called, but no, nothing. Derek's called, nothing. Of course, I didn't expect to get to him. Prodan, I just asked. I said, you don't have to tell me, or off the record, but do you know why? And nothing, right?
Did he reply?
He replied, but it was not about anything, and I just said, this secret is weird or something, and he said, just noted.
He said what?
Noted.
I'd be surprised if Dave even knows what happened.
I think I've heard he does. I've heard Dave is one of the people who knows what's happened. One of the few people who knows why.
Well, look, Dave Prodan's name came up in conversation when we were talking about the CEO, like who would be the replacement CEO. I don't know if it came up on air or not, but
it was
his name.
Yeah, it was in Beachgrit. Or
okay.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Who did it? Surfer magazine published it, and then I wrote it for Beachgrit. Okay. Surfer published it. Yeah, Dave.
I didn't comment on it at the time, but I did think about it since then, and I've decided he was complacent in this entire debacle. Not only was complacent, but he was defending Elo throughout. And there was times where we would criticize the WSL, and I would publish on social media, on Instagram, what you and I had discussed that week on the show, and he would give me grief over what I posted on social media. I think one week Stab High ran their air show event, and then that same week WSL was running in a wave pool or something. And so the commentary on Instagram that I published was just like, awesome, kudos to Stab for being, progressive in their contest format, and look, the WSL continues to be regressive in their contest formats. And he gives me grief about it. And it's like, dude, you are choosing to go down with this ship. That's fine, I guess, if you're protecting your own interests, but you're going to be on the wrong side of history. And when that happens, you shouldn't be shaming the people who are kind of calling a spade along the way. And so when we have to kind of make this, not that we're making the decision of who's going to be the next CEO, but at least we're commenting on who's going to be the next CEO. As far as I see it, Dave also never understood the right direction or he used to understand the right direction for the ship to go. And at some point, he decided to jump on board with the sinking ship. And so if we need to right the ship now, I'm not convinced that he's the right guy to right the ship. What I am convinced by is that he's also going to take missives from Emily Hoffer and Dirk Ziff and everybody else to continue the ship in the direction that it was going before. That's the way I feel.
I mean, I like Dave personally, right? And this
Yeah,
is where
of
things
course.
get dicey, of course. But Dave would be the absolute worst candidate ever. Dave is the ultimate apple polisher there. He is, I've worked with, Dave's been there from early ASP days. I've been covering surfing now for what? Is it almost 20 years, 15 years? A long time. And Dave is a great guy. He's approachable. You can talk to him. He is a stone wall he has never given me anything useful. I've only ever had to go around him or sneak through him. Maybe, he would have hooked up with like early tickets to the Surf Ranch Pro or like normal press credentially kind of stuff back in the day. But yeah, Dave is the problem as much as anyone. Dave is he's not like an accidental, he's a core surfer who chooses he is a turncoat in the worst way possible in that way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
He knows theoretically what the truth is. He theoretically knows the surf fan, and he actively pushes out garbage and has actively pushed out garbage his entire run at the World Surf League. He's not like a mole trying to make things right or fixing things at the back end or saying it would be a lot worse without me. It would be a lot better without him. Dave is a traitor.
Yeah, it really feels sad to see, actually.
Yep. Sorry, Dave.
What it feels like. Sorry, Dave. Nicest dude ever. I mean,
love you personally. But
same thing with Elo, by the way.
You're a corporate suck up, Dave. Love you.
Well, speaking of the WSL, they actually ran J-Bay last night. Did you watch and do you care?
0, and I do care about what the surf was doing, how did it look. I heard the forecast was not good.
Surf was marginal at best. It was nice to see surfers up and riding on a chest-high wave, which is, big compared to what they generally run in this year. But it's super marginal for J-Bay and just pales in comparison to the free surfs leading up to the event. So we don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but I'll give you the quick rundown.
Thank you.
Joao. So this is the non-elimination opening round only of the men.
Are you still in, by the way?
What?
Are you still in for
I'm in
Survival?
the losers league.
But you're still in the losers.
Still in the losers, yeah.
Okay, congrats.
Joao won his heat. Felipe won his heat. Griffin won his heat. John won his heat. Gabe won his heat. Ethan and Jordy got second in their heat, so they go into the elimination round. Kelly got third in his heat.
Surprising.
Behind John Florence and Liam O'Brien, and Jack Robinson got third behind Jordy Smith and Leonardo Fioravanti. So they're all in the elimination round. But seeing Kelly get third and Jack Robinson get third was a bummer.
Will Kelly Slater ever win a heat again? Is the question.
I thought you were going to say a contest.
Will he? No, of course not. Will he ever win a heat in professional surfing?
They're going to Chopu next, so yes.
Okay, so you're going to hold out that Kelly wins a heat at Chopu. I'm not even going to say there anymore. I'm going to say he's going to go to the elimination round and then get eliminated. Especially the way things are going this year. I mean, I don't know, that you would think, you'd like to think, I suppose, I don't know, that the World Surf League is not actually cursed. This year, it seems positively cursed. Every single stop, it feels, there is pumping swell with lots of like footage coming out of it too, leading up to the World Surf League event window. That window opens, the waves go flat. The entire window, flat. I mean, it couldn't have been, I guess it could have been worse in Brazil, but not by much.
No, not by much.
Well, and they're having to use the whole 10-day window to run, to even find enough scraps, even after the cut, when there's fewer surfers.
Look, we know the equation on how to run in good surf, and it's have a smaller tour that only needs one swell, and to have a big wave tour waiting period, like a wider waiting period with a mobile tour, so you can show up, you could target swells and show up. So the fact that they're still doing it in the archaic way that they've failed at for 2 decades now, when you say maybe it's cursed, I don't think it's a curse. People talk about is, good luck. No. And then they say, no, good luck is preparedness meeting opportunity. This is the exact opposite of that. This is being so inept that you're never prepared for, even if things go right, maybe you'll land ass backwards in a thing that looks decent once in a while, like we did with Pipe, with Kelly winning. Or Gabriel and Idolo ending up in the final at Pipe that one year, number 1 and number 2. But if you just count the number of heats in the course of the year and how many times there's actually good surf during those heats, it's 10 heats out of 700 that run. It's abysmal. And so it's them being completely inept, them being completely not understanding and not even trying to get it right. And that's why we're running in mediocre J-Bay.
I wonder if J-Bay is the least viewed of the professional surf contest purely because of, like, every other one I feel you can either catch it evening or earlier morning. J-Bay runs basically dead of night here.
And for a lot of the surfing fan world.
Yeah, exactly. Just where it is. And so I wonder if it is, how lightly viewed the J-Bay contest is.
Which is also a stupid model that they're running on, where they're dependent upon, running an 8 or 10 hour event in real time.
Yeah.
Anyways, we don't need to go on and on about it, but main portions of the show today. I'm going to ask you what you want to do first.
Okay,
Jonah versus Sarah or Pros in the Wild?
Let's go Pros in the Wild first.
Okay. I like it. Some feel-good stories and some poignant stories in Pros in the Wild. If you'll remember, our front runner for winning the Buell wetsuit is Steven Randall, who blew it in front of Jack Freestone in Cuba last week. So whoever we're going to do these Pros in the Wild, call in your submission, write in your submission, and we will pick one winner of the best story at the end of the month, and we're going to give them a Buell wetsuit. You can pick any wetsuit you want on buellsurf.com, and we'll give it to you for free. They'll ship it to you directly wherever you are in the world. First submission to challenge Steven comes in this week from Justin from Seattle. Justin in Seattle. He said, 7 or 8 years ago, I was traveling down to Nicaragua from LAX. Right before we boarded, we saw an extremely inebriated Bruce Irons and a large-chested younger female getting on the same flight. It looked like they hadn't slept for a few days. Bruce, Luke Davis, and a few other Ruka guys that I can't remember were staying at a house just down the beach from us, north of Playa Colorado. There's a stretch of beach north of Panga Drops before Los Perros that is unsurfable, heavy closeout shore pound. One late afternoon, the waves were massive, and we noticed someone paddle out in front of that zone and started dropping in on 10 to 12-foot closeout barrels. We assumed that it was Bruce Irons, so we walked down the beach to watch. We saw him get absolutely obliterated on 10 or so waves in a row before he dropped in, disappeared for several seconds, and got spit out of a monster stand-up keg. It was, to this day, the fastest I had ever seen anyone travel on a wave, and he casually just got out of the water like it was no big deal. Our minds were absolutely blown, and I will never forget that wave.
And it was Bruce Irons?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. The funny thing about these stories, I'm going to say just out of the get, I'm still liking the Jack Freestone better just because of the surprise of Jack Freestone. Bruce doing this is something that I imagine Bruce doing, right? Now, that doesn't take away from the impressiveness of these kinds of guys who are wired that way, right? Imagine Bruce. He was probably, knowing Bruce, like on one, right? Imagine having the urge to go surf closeout bombs for no reason. It's not like he's doing it for a photographer. It's not like he's doing it to get the shot. It's not like he's doing it for his work, right? It's not like I'm a professional surfer. It's time to go professional surf. He did that because that's how he's wired.
Yeah.
Is to go pack heavy Nicaraguan bombs.
I know. Well, that idea of he sees opportunity out there when we just know it's unsurfable. Like it's not even, there's not even an option to go out there. And he sees opportunities out there and also has kind of the, wherewithal to be able to take those 10 beatings to get the one opportunity. And, that 10-footer to us, it's like we'd be annihilated for the rest of the trip. We'd be done. And for him, it's just like, oh, yeah, no big deal. I know the one's out here. I'll just find it.
I mean, that's the. I mean, and
Casual evening surf.
I'm sure we will get to Mikala Jones, the horrible tragedy of Mikala Jones's passing. But like, it's. I'm shocked, to be honest, that we don't hear stories like that every day.
I know, me too.
I mean, the way people surf, where they surf, heavy barrels over shallow reef often, more often than not, in fact, with basically shrapnel or a missile you're attached to, you're bored. How are fatalities not just daily occurrences?
Well, look at Mason Ho's dry reef rock dance thing that he's constantly doing. It's like, how has he not been maimed?
I mean, one like fall going fast and hitting your head directly on exposed reef.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, just to credit, I guess, to all these, the Bruce Irons and the Mikalas and everyone for putting on such a wonderful show that we oftentimes probably take for granted, right? I mean,
well, yeah, what I was struck by with that Mikala Jones story was it can happen to anybody. Like, I thought that he was invincible.
Of course. He's the most, I mean, he has done that, getting barreled, and, I don't know the exact details around how his board cut him or his fin cut him.
Yeah, I think it's presumed to be the fin to the femoral artery, but yeah, that's not confirmed.
Yeah, but, so I don't know what kind of, obviously it's zero, but you just assume kind of heavy barrel that where, bottom drops out, board gets turned upside down and boom, freak accident. But
it's that easy, actually.
But going back and I've gone back and studied Jones's Instagram, I'm sure like everybody has, just poured over stuff, right? And it's stuff that it's these indelible images that have become part of my surf understanding forever, right? Of he really didn't pioneer the POV barrel, but really mastered the POV barrel shot. And I think in a different kind of way than Alex Gray or what's the Australian who does them all the time? The POV barrels.
Anthony Walsh.
Where Joneses were always different, right? He was like an artist who was doing that and going back and really appreciating it, taking a moment to really say, man, thank you for your body of work. It is wonderful.
You know what I think of I thought about this with him, and it made me, Bruce Irons' story made me think about that too, is how many, insane waves those guys have gotten that are not documented. Yeah. Mikala was specifically trying to get off the map and trying to kind of get away from all of it. And so the only documentation was essentially him self-documenting, because there wasn't a filmer like there is for so many other professional surfers. And when we see the waves that he did get, they are insane. Yeah. So how many were there that were just, mind-bending? And same thing with Bruce doing something like that. That is so heroic. I mean, I don't, that's not the right word because he's not a hero necessarily, but I don't know what the right word is. It is a heroic feat of kind of strength and, engaging with Mother Nature in a way that nobody else can.
And I love, I suppose, though, this Pros in the Wild in general is a great segment. But this right here, the fact that our dear listener got to experience that and witness that in real time, where it's only marked on his and his friends' brains, right? It only lives through them. And I'm glad that we got to share that through them, that he was there to witness it and then describe it. Because I can picture it, and I like that.
And something else that I loved about that story is these really flawed surf gods that we have are Bruce is a savant. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of pro surfers that are phenomenal talents. Bruce is a savant. Clay Marzo's a savant. Chris Ward, savant. And it's just, he's on such a different level and will disappoint you many, 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 many times. His them giving him entries into the Pipe Masters in the last decade, they haven't done it in the last 2 or 3 years. They haven't done it.
Yes, that's stopped, didn't it?
Pretty much. And for the last decade, from a decade ago until 3 years ago, he'd go out there and get a 2-point total. And we're all remembering Bruce of old, and we're like, please, Bruce, I hope he gets a 10. It's either going to be a 2 or a 10, but like, please let it be a 10 this time, because we want to see that Bruce of old. And to know that he can show up in Nicaragua, haven't slept in days, all that kind of stuff. And then he won't do it out at Panga drops when the waves are pumping necessarily. He will fail out there, but he'll do it in the shore break when nobody expects it, when there's no cameras and when nobody else is, paddling out.
Yep, to you, Bruce.
That's what we love about him.
Good pro in the wild.
Yeah, okay, Mike from Encinitas. Hey, David and Chaz, here's my pros in the wild story. Last spring, I went on a surf trip to the North Shore. I was surfing Pupukea on a day where the waves were about as big as I could handle. Not huge, but big enough for me. There were a bunch of pros in the water, Ross Williams, Baron Mamiya, but the only guy in the water anyone paid attention to was Michael Ho. I did my best to stay out of Uncle Mike's way as he caught seemingly dozens of the best waves of the day. I noticed him paddle a bit north to the peak with no one on it. I followed about 30 yards behind him, hoping to catch some scraps. Suddenly, the wave of the day comes out of deep water directly to Uncle Mike. I'm sitting on the shoulder, waiting to watch him take off on this beauty of a wave. Right as I would have expected him to turn for the wave, he turns to me, looks me directly in the eye, points at me, and yells, "Go!" I normally wouldn't have wanted anything to do with this wave, but there was no way I was going to disobey Michael Ho. I paddled harder than I ever have in my life, caught the wave, and surfed it about as well as a lifelong intermediate could have. After kicking out 100 yards down the beach, I paddled back to the takeoff zone, and he said, and I said, "Hey, thanks for that wave." He looked at me and said, "You were in the spot, brada," and threw me the loosest of all shakas. This act of generosity probably meant nothing to him, but gave me the lifelong memory of being called into a wave by a surfing legend. Mahalo, Uncle Mike.
I'm going to put this one as number one.
Okay.
This put a tear in my eye. I mean, Michael Ho is just a genuinely to his core, great guy.
Yeah.
And as evidenced right here, what a story. Man, I would have been, like, this had everything. I would have been, if I was sitting there, just out for the view, more or less at that point, right? If you're already feeling like totally. This is kind of, I'm at my limit here. Why? It's not, you don't mess around out there. And to get called in, to get your muscles like working, oh man, I gotta actually go, because there's no way you cannot. You would have to. Not only could you not paddle out in good conscience ever again there, I think you would really have to question yourself. I think you would have to go break your boards and say, "I'm not a surfer." If you were sitting out there and Michael Ho said go and you fake paddled, oh man, I missed it. Or if you did anything, but at least you could wipe out, but you can't wipe out on the takeoff, right? You have to have like a committed effort to that thing. And so I'm so happy that dear Mike made it happen.
I know. It's a great story. I think of like, what your limits are in terms of the waves in that scenario. And then if eyeballs are watching you, it makes you additionally nervous. And you're going, like, if you were just by yourself, you could really just kind of feel free to live up to your potential. But when people are watching and then pros are watching, that adds a real level of pressure. But if one of those guys says to you to go, you'll actually probably push your boundaries more than you would have on your own. I
mean, you have to. You have to. For your own personhood. I was going to say manhood, but thankfully the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing is on my heart.
Well, we have the next one comes in from Portugal. We had Seattle, we had Encinitas, and now we've got Portugal calling in.
Hello, David Lee, Scales, and Chaz. This is Manuel speaking from Portugal. I was just listening to some of your previous episodes, and Miguel was calling in from the Canary Islands talking about his accent, and I thought about adding mine, especially to the pool, especially because I would like to touch on the pros in the wild segment. This is a bit of a touchy one, particularly for me, because it's about Ricardo dos Santos, this Brazilian surfer that was a tube hound and ended up being killed by a policeman in his door, the door of his house. And yeah, my account of the pros in the wild was about basically his formative years, let's say. I mean, I grew up in a town nearby, Guarda do Embaú, there in the south of Brazil, and I learned to surf between there and a couple of other spots in the area. Yeah, through the years, I got to see this little kid. No, I remember him when he showed up. I don't know, was maybe 7, 8 years old, little boy, and I knew he was a local, a native. But yeah, like his skills were way above the local Grom. I would say, yeah, like it was way above a bunch of us, no, most of us. And then yeah, I think like from random encounters in the water, I followed him until he was maybe 12 or 13, and by this time he was just going square. He was doing stuff. He was just going up and down and hitting the lip with so much strength and so much radical. I don't know how to describe it. My English fails me here. But anyways, I for some reason, for lots of reasons, I moved. I went to live in Uruguay, and so at some point we stopped going to Guarda, and I lost track of Ricardinho, and by the time I came back there to surf and to meet my friends, and it went a few years went by, and that's when I knew he was an aspiring pro, no? So I could now I could follow this guy on tour, no? And we know what he did, all those seasons in Hawaii and Chopo, that wave of the winter, all of that, and yeah, to our sadness as the people that knew him closer, and everybody in the surfing community, I would say, he ended up being killed at the doorsteps of his house, which I know perfectly exactly where it is. I pass by every time you go to surf the point there in Guarda, and so yeah, it's a huge loss. But this is my what do you call it? Pros in the Wild account. So yeah, cheers. Have a good one. Thank you so much for opening up, and yeah, take care.
Not exactly a singular encounter, but a worthwhile revisiting of a good story.
I definitely like the memorial to Ricky Two Saints. Ricardo dos Santos was like such a phenomenal surfer. Those guys who come out of Brazil and shine on the North Shore and Chopu and things like that, it's always really impressive to me. Like, not that Brazil only has weak beach break, but like guys with just skills for that, right? The hunger and the cat-like reflexes that it takes to be able to, and the ocean knowledge, like to be able to, I mean, I guess back to the Michael Ho story too. You know, Michael Ho, seeing that wave come in, maybe knew that whatever that kink was, that he was going to be slightly too deep. He could still go and make it, I'm sure, but it'd be better for that guy. Like a person who can read the ocean that way, combined with no fear, combined with cat-like reflexes, is a real tip of the capper.
Yeah, the wave of the winter too that he got at Pipeline, I want to say it might have been 2016 or something like that, was still in the annals of history. Like, will go down as one of the greatest, I don't know, waves at Pipeline ever, but like images certainly out of, it was like the way that it was lit, and that it was like a double up on the section that he was just like standing tall in, and there was a couple of different angles of it that was just amazing stuff. So thank you, Manuel. Our next one comes from Michael in Rockaway, who says, "Hey guys, first time, long time here. I'm a mediocre surfer of 30 plus years from New York. I was surfing Ollie's Point in Costa Rica in 2016 with my cousin, and I could tell a few guys out were next level. I see one dude on a rusty board who looked familiar, and another one who looked like a former world champ. I realized the guy on the rusty was Josh Kerr, and the other was a world champ's twin, Damian Hobgood. Guys are tearing the place to shreds. I catch a wave down the point to the inside, and I turn around to see Josh and Sierra Kerr share a wave, having a blast, a beautiful father-daughter moment. As a relatively new girl dad at the time of a 2-year-old and another one who was going to be born 6 weeks later, I watched in awe and hoped that one day that would be me. As they kicked out, I find myself paddling up the point next to him. I thought of telling him how he has personally tanked my fantasy surfer team, but instead I said, "My daughter is 2. When can I start doing that?" He laughed and said 6 years old or something, and then paddled up the point at 3 times my speed. We get back up to the top, and Miss Kerr goes back to the boat. He starts paddling way up the point, and I hear one of his homies say, "It's showtime." I'll never forget that. He proceeds to catch a nice set wave, fly down the line at 80 miles an hour, and launch the biggest air in my Rockaway Beach that my Rockaway Beach eyes had ever seen. And my cousin and I just looked at each other and laughed. It felt like we were playing hoops on the court with LeBron. Unreal. Keep up the work, Mike.
Fantastic. Wow, these pros in the wild. Who knew that it would be such a heartstring pulling segment?
I know. I didn't anticipate that either. But what I like about it is knowing that Josh is choosing to spend that quality time with his daughter sharing waves. And the moment she hits the boat,
It's showtime.
It's showtime, dude.
That's
And just like crazy.
That's totally epic. I was thinking as that story was going too, there could be we could do a whole second one called Hobgoods in the Wild. Like, I feel that more everyday people have Hobgood surf experiences than any other pro out there. I mean, granted, there's 2 of them. Yeah, you double your chance to see a Hobgood in the wild, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've told you this before, but I don't know which Hobgood it was, but one time I was surfing in Newport when I was a teenager, and there was just so much swell and current. Like, I probably got like 2 waves or something. Like, I was just spending the entire day paddling, and whichever one of them it was out, and they were just beelining to the exact takeoff spot, get a barrel way down the beach, paddle all the way back out. Everybody else was going to the beach and walking down the beach to then try to get back out to the position. They were just paddling past everybody. It was like honestly like they were a motorboat, or had a motor on the bottom.
I mean, with that last one too, Josh Kerr paddling by him at 3 times the speed. I don't understand that. You would think that, sure, I don't have the quickest pop-up. I am dumb on the wave. This, that, or the other thing. I don't have the instincts to be a pro surfer. Paddling, though, paddling is just something you can do. I could be the best paddler in the world. No, somehow pros have a paddling gear or paddling muscle or paddling style that is like when you see a pro and you're like paddling full on, and then a pro will breeze by you at quarter speed, or quarter energy. I don't understand that part of surfing. Can't we all paddle the same at least? Or if I try really hard, can't I paddle faster than you? Nope. I'm not even going to be close.
You would think it would be the guy with the biggest muscles, who is the best paddler or something. And it's nothing to do with any of that. It's just time in the water experience.
Is it some way that a pro will position themselves on the board when they're paddling that they can feel like I'm getting my board at the exact right and shifting always with the swell, but for the exact right plane where everybody else is like bogging a little bit, or
totally
like me as pro, I feel the ripples under my stomach and I'm able to like slightly adjust my board just to make it basically a motorboat.
Slightly adjust in the right spot, my right hip for this undulation of the ocean, my left hip for the other one, and like slowly back and forth.
Crazy pros.
I know, it is crazy. That is one of the most impressive things when you see pros in the wild is paddle speed.
Yep.
Efficiency. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. I have more, but we'll just keep it at one more and then save some for next week. I'm sure more will come in. But Mike from Washington. A lot of mics in this batch.
So many mics. We could have a mic in the wild. Could be another segment.
Mike from Washington says, "Greetings, DLS and CS. This is Mike from Washington. I'm thoroughly enjoying the show and wanted to share my pro in the wild encounter. Can I call this a tale of 2 pros in the wild? These 2 encounters occurring within the same region during the same week couldn't have been more disparate. and left me contemplating the impact pros have on our own individual experience, running the spectrum from disillusionment to pure bliss, more apropos than anything to the current conversation regarding the role of the WSL in competitive surfing versus professionals free surfing, and what we as a core fan really value. I'm lucky that my wife's family lives in Santa Barbara. This equates to little surf trips in balmier waters a handful of times a year when we come down to visit, although usually it's sharing ankle high slaps with anyone else desperate enough to get wet. January of 2021, though, was a very different deal. The central coast of California saw some really good runs of swell, and we happened to have a quick trip lined up during this time. The stoke level was high on departure and went through the roof as we flew over the ranch, where it literally looks like lines of running uninterrupted swell from Point Conception to Gaviota. That night, I racked my brain on where to surf the next morning. Knowing all well that I should resist the urge, I found myself pulling into the lot at Rincon. I actually drove past, intent on checking less crowded spots in hopes of scoring, but inexplicably found myself turning around, scrambling to park, and then joining the other 200 surfers, hoping to pick off just one good one. What a dumb idea. And there I was. So I paddled through the crowds, looking to find my appropriate spot amongst the spectacle. Sets were ticking off like a metronome. Guys were absolutely ripping. And as I settle in midpoint, mostly just dodging bodies and waves, here comes a dude in a full red wetsuit, flying down the line like I've never seen before. Right in front of me, as the section closes out, he launches into an air reverse, only to send his board literally into orbit. My mind is scrambling. Who is this? Are they really out here chucking his leashless board into orbit like this on this day? Why? The red suit swims in, grabs his board, and a minute later he's back. This time traveling midpoint like a flying squirrel that stumbled into a bag of cocaine. Forget getting a wave today, I told myself. This is next level spectacle. So for the next hour, I watched Felipe Toledo back paddle, shoulder hop, and burn surfer after surfer. Most of us got 0 waves this day, and he got 30. I got out of the water after I had had enough, thoroughly amused, but left wondering why I wasted the opportunity to surf great waves just to watch Felipe's downright disrespect for the order of things. True, it's pumping Rincon, and if it wasn't him, it would have been another pro. At least that's what I told myself. Ultimately, I felt a bit empty from the quote session and reminded myself of my place in surfing, which is definitely not surfing pumping Rincon. Cut.
Oh, do we have another pro?
Yeah, I got another pro in the wild. Cut to a few days later. Less swell in the water and but still good, and I make a better decision to surf Emmawood, a weird little uncrowded wedgie wave that can get really fun on occasion. Sorry, the light's blinding me. All right. It was indeed fun, and I was finally getting waves, unlike the Rincon debacle. I paddled back out after a solidly intermediate effort to see a big, strong dude absolutely blow the top off of a section. The water level view was ridiculous, as this was real power surfing. I sit back on my little peak, and none other than Dane Reynolds paddles back out to sit beside me, all grins. I immediately felt self-conscious, sheepish, and again, wildly out of place in the pecking order of my pecking order in the surfing world. Then he said hi. And for the next hour, and he and a few others split peaks, shared waves, and had some chuckles, all the while watching at live water level view, Dane Reynolds absolutely murdering waves. One of the best sessions of my entire life. I left the water feeling more filled with stoke than I ever have before. And it wasn't because I got good waves or surfed them reasonably well. It was because I shared the session with a pro who was filled with the joy that surfing brings, and is willing to share that with others who happen to be in the water with him that day. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that he probably changed the whole tone in the water that day. Though the crowd was fairly light, everyone was stoked and respectful, a seemingly vacant combination when the surf is good in most California spots. How cool is that? As I send this, I reflect back on those 2 sessions. I'm comfortable admitting that I'd much rather watch a pro surf unfettered by the confines of competition, riding waves for the pure joy of surfing, rather than watch anything that professional competitive surfing has become. So, if I may, I leave you two with a question. Do you think that the current state of competitive professional surfing is sucking the soul out of surfing? And if so, how is this affecting the surf experience for all of us other average folks out there? Work, fellas.
Great couple of pros in the wild. I love the first one. It was funny. Before you started the second one, I was going to say if it's Emma Wood that he's surfing, because I was thinking that's where he was going, then this pro in the wild is going to be Dane Reynolds.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, the first one, I think, notable in that talk about pros paddling, talk about pros ability on waves, but pros desire for waves is also what makes them a pro. Like I can paddle out to the peak and try to figure out, okay, when should I go and what's my place, and assessing the talent or skill of the surfers around you. And then, like that's what I think most average folk do. A pro goes out there and says, every one of these waves is mine.
Yeah.
People just happen to be maybe on them, but they're all mine. And go act that way, right? And so get 30 waves. And I always wonder, because there would be nothing stopping our dear listener from doing that himself, right? I mean, you get yelled at. But even you could go out and say, look, I'm going to go get 4 waves. I don't care who's on them. I'm just going to go get 4. It's even hard / impossible to will yourself, or for me at least, to really drop in on people or, really back paddle and snake someone who's sitting there or whatever. Like the etiquette in surf is such a big part of my surf experience, and probably because I'm not very good. Probably because, hey man, I need everybody to respect the code here so we can all share, right?
Yeah.
Pro's not interested in sharing.
Well, it's Felipe looks at every wave and realizes, what you're doing when you paddle out is assessing everybody else in the lineup. And if there's a kook that's not going to make a late drop or something, you can sit right next to him. You could actually let him sit with priority.
Yeah.
Because he's either not going to catch the wave, he'll be out of position for the wave, or he's going to eat it on the wave, and you can almost go with impunity. And I think Felipe is making that exact same assessment when he looks at us.
Yeah.
And so even if we're up and riding, he goes, oh, they're not going to make this section. Or even if they make this section, they're going to do a bogging cutback.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
I'm going to do a 360 air. Yeah. So I'm just going.
Yeah. Yep. And then the Dane Reynolds, I love that story just because it is totally true. Dane, like Michael Ho, there's certain real, not just surf legends, but where their personality is such that it raises the level, not just on a performance level, but raises the vibe, right? And Dane is such a great guy, not only a phenomenal surfer, not just a great, dad and whatever, but Dane Reynolds is truly a genuinely good guy. And so I love that, the reflection of that in a lineup where everybody can be getting waves, everybody, the entire level is lifted thanks to one person.
Yeah. And it's also, you have to imagine he is a celebrity, especially in Ventura, and it's got to be so annoying to go surfing and be gawked at every single time. Same thing for Mike Ho on the North Shore. For them to not be jaded by that, for them to not become curmudgeonly by that, and to instead embrace it, actually probably deflects so much of that tension. If you're just cool to everybody and say hi, then they don't be weird about it. Then your fans probably are no longer staring at you. They're now cool too, and everybody's having a good time. So congrats on those guys for embracing it.
Well done.
Yeah,
and
well
done are submissions. Those are all solid.
Well, not only good stories, but really well written.
Completely. Every one of them is beautiful. They are beautiful vignettes.
Totally. So we need to now figure out, I think Steven from last week got dethroned by Mike and Encinitas about Michael Ho.
I'm still going Michael Ho as my number one. I love them all, but Michael Ho's story has the arc there was real nice.
So Manuel from Portugal, sorry to say you're out. We love Ricardo dos Santos too, though. Mike from Rockaway, who the Josh Kerr story at Ollie's Point came short. Mike from Washington with that most recent Dane Reynolds Felipe story, unfortunately. Still
Really good.
Still
No
can't beat
Mike
Mike Ho. Okay, Mike Ho it is. Until next week, congratulations, Mike from Encinitas. You're in the pole position. Okay, so Sarah Brady, the case of Sarah Brady versus Jonah Hill.
How studiously have you been following this, David Lee Scales?
Honestly, I'm not trying to pay attention. It finds its way to me every time I open Instagram. I cannot believe the life that this story has had on it.
It's funny, Jonah Hill stories somehow really, really get the public going in some way. Like, I don't know what specifically it is. It's not like he is starring in some blockbuster that's opening right now, right? Yeah. There's no reason his name should be ticking the algorithm in the way it does. Now, of course, the salaciousness of this one, you could see how it would get a life, but you would think it would bubble beneath the surface of like major headline stories and then quickly disappear. Instead, it becomes the major headline story. And I'm not talking about on Beachgrit or whatever. I'm talking about like mainstream media. This thing has risen and stays for it doesn't just go down with the 24-hour cycle. No. It gets, and of course, our dear Sarah Brady is doing her best to pour gasoline on the smoldering embers and relight it every day. But
and a bunch of other celebrities are chiming in about it. That's the other thing that keeps the flames going is, I don't know who, Bethany Frankel or whatever Bravo celebrity then has an opinion about it. And so
she has a negative Jonah experience.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then other people start chiming in, and then it all kind of comes to the surface again. But this story's not quite a week old. I feel like it's maybe 5 days old. Sunday, actually. Sarah Brady took to Instagram. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, finish describing, then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so Sunday, Sarah Brady, which is Jonah Hill's former girlfriend, and surfer, by the way. That's how we all know Sarah Brady. She's a surf instructor, an activist, and her and Jonah started dating, 2 years ago. And she took to they broke up, and 2 years ago Sunday, she took to Instagram to share screenshots of text exchanges that she had with Jonah, apparently through their breakup. Some of them are probably through the relationship prior to the breakup, and published them on Instagram, essentially to shame Jonah, saying that he is misogynistic, he is a narcissist, and she felt really mistreated in the relationship, and with the benefit of hindsight, wants to warn other women against his ways, basically, his misogynistic ways. She got lured in, felt like she was victimized by him, and then had some clarity after enough time after the breakup, and now wants to send this warning out to potential other victims that he may date in the future. So this story caught fire. I mean, I started seeing it. People started sending it to me like, oh my God, check out her stories before they go away in 24 hours. Then there was a Reddit thread that captured all of it and had commentary. And I thought that was as big as it would go. Living on a separate platform would be as big as it goes. Well, then TMZ, I texted you at that point about it, like, hey, did you see what's going on over here? Then you had already seen it, and then TMZ reported on it, and then Page Six reported on it, and now those kind of gossipy sites are doing what we said, basically reporting on every little update and every little celebrity weighing in, or everybody who's ever had a bad experience with Jonah is weighing in. Now Vice is interviewing marriage counselors to hear what their thoughts are on this breakup. So what are your thoughts on this story?
I mean, and then that was the first tranche of personal emails or texts, right? Then she released a whole nother, post breakup, with him getting together with the woman who is now the mother of his child, right?
Well, fill me in on that, because I didn't see any of those.
Oh yeah, so this is and this is as many private texts as round one, maybe more. And it's like him telling her, hey, just FYI, I got with somebody new and just wanted to be open and honest and tell you that, right? And so then it just is back and forth with her and him, her feeling like, well, you were leaning on me for partner level relationship, whatever stuff when you were with somebody else, and like very clear hurt feelings, but then her basically trying to tar him with the you were being, I don't know, I don't even know what, to be honest. I think not communicating well, and leaning on me for things you shouldn't have been, being too close to me when you were with her, and I don't know what her point was. And then intermixed in all this was in her stories, like, it's everything, right? I mean, I don't know how. Do you know how people have that much time to do when I go onto Instagram stories and I see 1,000 little squares at the top of that's how much content there is? I'm like, how do you have time to do that?
I have no idea.
She's basically curating her life in real time. Ostensibly she's living, but she's capturing, because every one of those things is like, her stories is like a screenshot of a Jonah Hill text with some commentary that she's added in another box, with oftentimes a little Bitmoji or a GIF or something, something's happening in the corner. Like, each one of those takes time to do. So she has spent hours upon hours, and her, so again, a whole dump, 2 big, massive dumps of personal texts. But in any case,
whose side are you on?
Well, Jonah sounds oversensitive maybe, and Jonah's, demands of her maybe are...
We didn't even discuss that.
Yeah, it was demand. That was the first thing. It was like, if you want to be in a relationship, or if we want to be in a relationship, it's like, things I don't like. Boundaryless relationships with men, flirting with men in the lineup, I think it was, going to lunch, or going to having any kind of interaction with unstable females more than just a coffee or something like that, right?
Right.
And then he ends. Yeah, you can read them.
Okay, he said, apparently they were in some fight. This was December 2nd, 2021. And he said, plain and simple, if you need, and he has bullet points: surfing with men, boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post sexual pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places, and from your wild recent past beyond getting a lunch or coffee or something respectful. I am not the right partner for you if you need any of these things. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it, and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership. My boundaries with you based on the ways these actions have hurt our trust. So that's him sending her his list of needs in a relationship, and saying those are the things that have offended me, essentially.
Yeah, and again, like, there's a lot of talk about your boundaries are for you. You can't put boundaries on somebody else, right? Like, you can't say my boundary is for you not to drink, like,
right.
Et cetera, et cetera. I get all that. I get how this list is, seemingly like I don't know, wouldn't call it misogynistic. I love the fact that misogynistic and narcissistic get thrown out so easily. Like, you're saying he hates women and has a clinical disease of, being so self-involved that it's a clinical disease. That's what you're saying. That this whole exchange means he hates women and it has a mental disease, right? Where we don't know any of the context, and I think it's really easy to get into victim shaming and, we need to believe the victim and all this kind of stuff. Sarah Brady has provided loads of material, but no real context, right? Jonah's staying silent, as he should. This shouldn't be a tit for tat thing, right? Yeah. I don't know what she expected to get out of this dump, but you can tell that she really likes it. She likes the attention, right? Because she keeps going back in there, and her reason, she'll go back. I've read them all, David Lee Scales, if you can imagine. I've read every text of the first and every text of the second, and then every frame in between, where she keeps changing. The reason I did this, she will say, is because I want, like you said, I want, victims and people to be able to feel safe to come forward. I am a victim, et cetera, et cetera. And I want my story to empower other people. Then she'll include other people's stories who reach out to her and say, your story empowered me to come forward about my thing, whatever, on and on and on and on. Well, all whatever. But then she'll say, my reason for doing this, one of her latest reasons for doing it was that Jonah Hill would not get waves anymore based on. Did you see that whole one?
I saw Derek's headline about it.
Yeah, but that's all true, right? And so then she said, and this kind of, she'll text to her buddies, but then put her own text on her Instagram stories. You know, low key, I wanted this to happen. This is the reason I did this, is for Jonah Hill not to get any waves. So at this point, like, again, back to the start of the show, back to our talk about
Misunderstanding.
about stupidity plus misunderstanding plus a lack of grace plus then this, you can tell in Sarah Brady, this feeling of righteousness, of I am right, is growing, right? It started off as a small flame, enough of a flame where she thought, I'm going to do a personal dump of private text messages. Now as it's gone on, and this story's gone on, she is becoming a martyr. She is a voice of the oppressed and abused women of the world because of her story of abuse, where Derek ended his piece, I thought, wonderfully. Did you read Derek's piece on where her, so the title of this one, Derek wrote, was Jonah Hill's ex, Sarah Brady, delivers stunning coup de grace. Actors banned from Hawaiian surf spots, made famous by Andy Irons. Quote, if he ever tries to surf Honolulu again, he never get one wave without getting cut off, end quote. Okay, so again, Derek recounts it, and a lot of this is, you know, Sarah saying, I am a champion for me as an abused woman myself. I am a champion. Derek Riley writes at the end of his story, also the Survivor thing. When I think Survivor, I think of brave Malala Yousafzai, shot in the head by the Taliban for speaking out against the Afghan regime. I think of the 9-year-old napalm girl, Phan Thai Kim, whatever her name is, running naked after being hit by South Vietnamese bombs. Or Aaron Ralston, who cut his hand off after being trapped by a boulder following a climbing accident. I don't think having a needy ex necessarily puts you in the same league. If you don't dig them, delete their number, unfollow where necessary, and move on. Or is that old-fashioned, toxic, etc.? Where that's the silly thing of this whole thing is, and I'm not, you know, we're not grading abuse here. We're not saying, okay, well, this counts as abuse and this doesn't. But my goodness gracious,
I think it's okay.
If you read her stuff, it's like, that's it. You had a needy ex. You had a needy ex, and maybe like he made demands of you in the relationship in terms of what he wanted. You're dating a friggin' celebrity to begin with. You think celebrities are like normal people? You think that having been hounded by paparazzi and what your entire life, that you're not going to have like sort of a checklist of these are the things that have gotten me in trouble publicly before, you know, like, I don't know what you're thinking you're getting out of dating a full on, and it's not like Jonah Hill was a C-list celebrity, right? I mean, Jonah Hill is a A-list celebrity. He is
Oscar nominated, I believe.
Yeah, Oscar nominated. Like, he is a full on celebrity. And so context free, you're going to throw out these private text messages, really tar him badly. I mean, really get him, right? Like, now Jonah Hill, at least in this cycle, is an abuser, a misogynist, a narcissist. Other stories are coming out. He's an awful person, right? That's what, and you caused that by publishing private text messages. To what end? Like, do you really hate Jonah Hill that bad? I mean, she clearly must.
Well, I think her feelings are really hurt still. Like, to me, this is just a normal breakup. I think Jonah, I'll share my opinions on Jonah later, I guess, but to me, this just looks like a normal breakup, and breakups are ugly. And you say, and it brings the worst out of you as well. Like, you say shitty things, you know? And so I think the timing of it is very interesting to me. The fact that she would wait so long. I mean, he literally already has a kid with somebody else. So this wasn't, you know, he's got into a relationship with somebody and had a kid with somebody. And that was months ago that he had that news story about him having the kid. So now we're probably a year after their breakup. So the fact that she's publishing it now shows that she's still upset about the breakup and her feelings are still hurt about the breakup.
But
so when I saw that, So when I saw that first dump of messages, that's how I felt initially. It was like, oof, scorned ex-girlfriend, really bothered by the fact that he now has a kid with somebody else, and she's showing some raw emotion here. And I didn't feel less about her because of that. I just understood that's what it was, right? But I didn't think, and I thought that those texts made Jonah look bad, but whatever. They weren't like, you know, we're not talking Harvey Weinstein or something. Like, this isn't a criminal activity. So I was just kind of going to move on from it. But when I saw her kind of fanning the flames and doing it over and over again, and her name popping up in the mainstream press over and over again, I realized she's gotten much more famous off of this scandal than she ever got from dating him in the first place.
Yep.
And the fact that she's fueling, it's now gone beyond alerting women to his potential misogyny or whatever it is that's going to affect their relationship. Like, it's now gotten into I think she likes it, you know? And so that makes me kind of like her a little bit less.
Yeah, I mean, she has gotten off on, it's very clear, I think, when you look at her whole story timeline, how she's feeling it, right? She likes it. She likes this attention. And that's fine, you know, go get your 15 minutes. But also, she's getting her 15 minutes at the expense of somebody else, She's getting her 15 minutes, I think, at the expense also of real survivors. Like, of equating or having her experience of, you know, being told maybe what to wear or whatever. And I suppose she'll say, well, this is the larger issue, right? This is narcissistic, controlling. She keeps going back to this Davos or something, deflect, something that abusers do, right? But again, I mean,
even if she's right, you've already made your point. We got it. He is that.
I mean,
what else do you want? It's not a criminal activity.
No,
You've identified that he is that. You've let everybody know that he is that. Okay, moving on. You guys aren't together anymore. Just move on, right?
Yeah, no, she likes it. She really likes it.
So that was my other thought was, it's gotten to the point where this is not healing for Sarah. Like,
but
you kind of waiting in it and rehashing it over and over, and now having your ego fed by it. This is not healing for Sarah. The healing thing is acknowledge it, delete it. Like Derek said, block the number, move on. He's married, or he's got a kid with somebody else. He's clearly moved on. Go ahead and move on from it at this point. You've alerted other people. You checked that box. Move on.
Yeah, but no. I mean, it's a real sickness, to be honest, of social media, that people can do this kind of thing, feel justified, feel, you know, the endorphins or whatever that it ticks of people to, you know, and to have all these texts of support for her, and then to be able to say, you know, no, you who are talking negatively about me or saying anything negatively about me, that gets them off too, right? Like it seems like a sickness of social media. And when you see her stories, how many there are, the obsession, like that's not a sign of a healthy mind. That is and I'm not just saying for her. If I go to anybody's stories and see 80,000 Instagram stories, I'm like, pump the friggin' brakes, man. You are living, all of this doesn't need to be documented every moment. Like, stop and honestly smell the roses for a second. Look away from the phone. Look outward. Look at somebody or something else.
And those 80,000 are about the same exact thing.
Yeah. I mean,
I even when I saw the initial dump, like I said, my assessment was scorned ex, feeling the raw emotion of him having a baby with somebody else or whatever, and just letting it all out there. I had grace for that, but I also thought it was poor taste.
Yeah.
Like sharing the private text messages. Again, it's not criminal activity, so you don't need to take this to the FBI or something. And just sharing them publicly, I just thought was poor taste. You know, you have to have respect for those people that you opted into a relationship with. And yes, he scorned you, but again, not criminal. You had difference of opinion, so you have to kind of have respect for your own choice or for the people that you were with. But all that aside, I was willing to overlook it. I didn't read as many of the messages as you, but I did read some of them. And my second thought was, this validates exactly who I presume Jonah Hill was based on all the other information. Like, he does totally seems narcissistic and insecure. I won't say misogynist because I didn't see any of that, but he seems insecure and at the same time equal amounts of narcissism. He slid into her DMs initially by liking and commenting privately in her DMs on her in a bikini doing a bottom turn where the shot is essentially of her butt. So he commented on that and started a relationship based on that. And then his messages once they're in a relationship is, you're not allowed to model, you're not allowed to, or he did, by the way, I should say, he didn't say you're not allowed to. He said, for me in a relationship, I don't want you to, I don't want my partner to be posting bikini shots, to be modeling, to be talking to other guys, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's hypocritical to slide in and get into the relationship via that method, but then be against it once you're in the relationship with that person is hypocritical.
For sure. And like, I think having a list of correct behaviors for your partner is clearly off-piste, right?
Totally.
Like, and that is not cool. And I totally see how, to Sarah's point, I guess, that leads to, that kind of controlling behavior can be a sign of something else. Like, and
Totally.
there's not enough context as it relates to Jonah is, what, like, but also guess what you're dating, Sarah Brady. Guess who he is? He's an A-list movie star. They're crazy. They've grown, like, the world is not the same for them. Like, as I was last week before on set, and all that, like, you see, like, I literally saw, I was on set for 4 days. You see how to be an actor and to do that kind of thing, it makes you crazy. Like, I watched my young daughter go semi-crazy. You've got all these people around you. You're saying lines. You're living in a fantasy. You're playing somebody else perpetually. Like, how does this not really break you? Not in a bad way, but it's like this whole thing is weird. And so for her then to say, Jonah has weird tics. Yeah. It's Jonah Hill. He's a movie star. Like, and I think he's been, and again, she'll go in, the reason she did it, I'm protecting other women. I want him to get snaked in the lineup. One of her reasons why she did it was, she was mad that he has become the face of mental health, right? After his movie Studs came out and all this. And there's so much therapy speak in the whole thing. And there's, it's just nonstop therapy speak. And so that's when you have therapists weighing in. Therapists saying using therapy speak outside of therapy is dangerous, and Jonah Hill, you're wrong for this way. I'm thinking, how in the world is a therapist weighing in on somebody that's not their patient that they haven't talked to? How is that okay, right? All of this seems like it's a therapy mess. I think there's always too much of a good thing, and when you have two personal therapists plus other therapists and therapy. I mean, I said this about Stutz, right? Which I'll at some point, and again, I mean, I talked to Jonah about Stutz and completely saw where I look callous, right? That people need therapy, and I don't, zero undermining of therapy. I'm not meaning to undermine therapy. I think therapy is a valuable tool, right? But I think there's always too much of something, and there can be too much self-reflection, right? Where it's just always inside, which gets back to the misunderstandings and all this, right? Of like, and then this feeling of justification of, I'm working on myself, I am feeling these things are valid, this person's validating them, I am right. Like, it's just this cycle of like, can we not pull back for a minute and say, I wonder what that person's thinking. I wonder how that person's feeling. Let me put myself in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, it seems like difficult to do. But I don't know how Sarah couldn't think. Jonah advertised himself as overly sensitive, as insecure. He's publicly stated that that's what he is, right?
Yeah.
And so for her to then bash him for being that also seems kind of, well, why did you date him in the first place?
Yeah, I hate to even come at Sarah for her missteps in this whole thing, because I think that she's right. Like, her assessment about Jonah through this is accurate. Like, he did, basically these things that a partner shouldn't do. He made me feel insecure. He made me feel these ways by using therapy speak to define what his boundaries are in the relationship. He did it in such a way that made me feel less than. And I think that's all accurate assessment, but the way that she's kind of handled it and gone on about it does not make her look great either. It's just breakups are ugly. And they clearly weren't bringing out the best in one another. That's the other thing, is you could tell in the way that they were communicating with one another in those private exchanges. They're not the right fit for one another. He's making her feel terrible. She's doing stuff that's making him feel terrible. It's time to split up. And by the way, you should probably do it privately. But her kind of doing it the way that she did it makes her look bad. He looked bad in the relationship on his own accord. And it's kind of gross that we're all even discussing it.
I mean, everybody looks bad. But the crazy thing is when the high wears off for her, because I'm sure she's still riding high, right? It's still in the news cycle, I'm assuming. I haven't looked today. But when that wears off and I wonder if people, do they just move on to the next thing? Will she just be like, hey, I was like, in order for somebody like that to feel like this was all good, like really justified again, like, okay, I was a champion for, abused women who don't have a voice for themselves. I used my platform for good. Now, so many more women are going to be checking the behavior of their abusive partner. And so I am someday they should carve my face into Mount Rushmore. I mean, I suppose that's what the takeaway for her is.
I think she can pretend like that's her intention, but I think her true intention all along was to hurt him. Like, she felt hurt by him, and now she's trying hard to hurt him. And the reality is, kind of my assessment is that he's got kind of equal parts insecurity and narcissism. And so this would hurt him. I think she probably succeeded in it. I don't think that he should be hurt by it. Like, I think, dude, just ignore all those texts, let the news cycle go away. Presumably you're happy with your new partner and your kid. Freaking ignore all that bull crap and just move forward. Go and make your next great piece of art. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would do if I was him. But I have a feeling that this might be hurting his feelings, and he is caught up in all of the news stories. And so she probably succeeded in what she was trying to do.
Well, good job, Sarah Brady.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to see too much more of it.
Nope.
Well, what'll be interesting too is if she actually cashes in on this. Like I said, she has gotten more famous from this scandal than she ever got from dating him or than she ever was prior. And so it'd be interesting to see where this goes from here for her.
Well, and there really is an awareness of her own, kind of fame or notoriety, because she says at some point about Jonah not getting waves at Hanalei. She was like, yeah, she said, I don't want him to get waves anymore based on people think that we're together. And I was thinking, people don't consider you, Sarah Brady, when they consider Jonah Hill. Like, if somebody sees Jonah Hill paddling for a wave, even if it's a break you surf all the time, nobody's thinking, oh, that's Sarah's guy, I'm going to let him surf. They'll either be kind of starstruck because it's Jonah or somebody famous, or they won't, or whatever. It has nothing to do with you. The fact that you think that you are somehow changing people's minds as it relates to paddling, snaking Jonah or not, is wildly, talk about narcissistic, I suppose.
He was getting free access because
based
of her.
On her. Yeah.
Somebody DM'd me 2 hours ago right before we were going to record and said, dude, this Jonah Hill Sarah Brady shit show is a minefield, but I can't wait to hear you guys wade through it on the podcast.
I mean,
it's some of the kookiest stuff I've ever seen, and it reminds me that surfing is not cool anymore, or too cool to be understood by the masses, maybe. And now that you have feminist groups lashing out at you, Cersei, and Beachgrit and Chaz, wow, what times we live in.
I mean, it really is crazy. It's funny because
really is.
I mean, and I was getting, DMs and texts and all this, like, you must be in heaven about this, right? Like, first ELO, and now we got this. And this one turned my stomach. I was like, I don't want, I texted Derek, like, the first cycle really start building up, hoping it was going to go away because I didn't want to touch it. And texted Derek, and Derek's like, yeah, I guess we have to. So Derek took the first one, right? And then it's kept getting more absurd. I mean, when the whole mainstream media started calling her a professional surfer, I thought there's a funny angle of like, this is just goofy. And then, yeah, just the whole, but yeah, it's like ugly minefield everywhere. Cause I know this right here, the Committee for Equity and Women's Serving, all that, they're going to go and say, you victim shamers, from having a conversation about it, from two cisgendered white males having a conversation about what constitutes abuse in a relationship. We're like going to get marched straight out to the guillotine for this. But honestly, speaking of, have you watched, what is it? Not Dead Reckoning. Oh, damn it.
No.
Dead Ringers.
No.
Okay, start watching Dead Ringers.
We need a new show.
Dead Ringers, it's on Amazon, I think. Anyway, but shows that address, I think, head on very difficult topics where people just talk about them. I love that. And that's what I hope this is, hey man, my opinion may be totally wrong. Your opinion may be totally wrong. Maybe we're not allowed to speak on anything outside of our direct experience, but I don't know how to live in that way, nor try to get to some kind of understanding about others in that way. If my assessment is wrong about Sarah Brady, I would love for her, or she probably has a publicist by now, for them to reach out and say, hey, look, man, we feel there's a misunderstanding. Yeah, she said something, not to keep going on and on about this, but she mentioned something in one of her 8,000 Instagram stories. It was somebody on a podcast, I think, talking negatively about her. And she said, the text below was, if you don't know me, shut up about me, right? You have nothing to say. And I'm thinking, I would love not to know you at all. You were the one who put 8,000 Instagram stories up. You were the one who is keying me in to every moment of your personal life. And then you're saying, if you don't know me, you can't talk about me. But
right.
I didn't go in your phone, and the idiocy of that, of saying, shut your mouth, you don't know me personally. And then here's another picture of the sushi I'm eating right now for dinner with my schedule, with another personal text that I'm making public. Like, social media has rotted people's brains, legitimately.
Yeah. Final question for you about this is, do you like Jonah Hill more or less than prior to the scandal? And do you like Sarah Brady more or less since prior?
I had zero impression of Sarah Brady other than dating Jonah Hill before, and I think poorly of her now. I think it is unless there's like criminal something happening, I think dumping private exchanges publicly is never something that's a good idea. And the thought that you're going to save people from abuse and whatnot, I mean, you could have, if you really wanted to do that, you could have done that in a different way without dumping private text messages. I think exactly what you said. Breakups are ugly. If there was text exchanges, I'm thankfully lived before text for most of my breakups. But if there was textual exchanges of my breakups, none of them would be good. I would come off as an ass.
Yeah.
That's what a breakup is. Messy. I don't know.
Yeah.
The idea of conscious uncoupling. Remember
Gwyneth
Paltrow and Chris Martin's conscious uncoupling. That doesn't happen. Breakups in their nature are nasty. Somebody did something bad. People don't break up because, you know what? That was a great run. We had a lot of fun together. Both of us are wanting perfectly different things right now. Heartbreak is heartbreak, and it's unfortunate. So I think poorly of Sarah. I think exactly the same as Jonah. I think Jonah, publicly and getting to know him a little bit, he is who he is. And I think he's not putting on, this therapy stuff isn't public facing fake stuff. I think he really is genuinely trying to be a better version of himself. I'm sure he would look back on this stuff and he says in the text too, he'll get beat up on by her, and I'm really going to try to put this into some kind of bigger context and whatever. I think he's really, really, really trying to grow and learn. That doesn't excuse bad behavior at all. But I think that, I don't know. I think Jonah is trying to be the best Jonah that he can. And Sarah seems like she's trying to be the worst Sarah that she can.
I feel the same way, basically. I didn't really have an opinion about Sarah before. I knew nothing about her, essentially. And then I feel like this was poor form. Yeah. So it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
If you're a guy, I mean, and you know that she did this, would you be inclined to go on a date with Sarah Brady?
No, but there's far more people who are definitely inclined to go on a date with her now because she has 150,000 more Instagram followers than she had before this. You know what I mean? Like strictly for the celebrity angle. Or
I mean, she keeps saying that she hopes, one of her many hopes, this whole thing was that Jonah would surround himself with feminist men. Yeah. And so learn what
that's
really,
one of her many hopes.
That's one of her, my real hope. There was a lot of slides of my real hope in this whole thing, that Jonah would learn, that he would, apologize for past behavior by surrounding himself with true feminist men. And I was just, so maybe I guess there's a true feminist man, Sarah Brady, her feminist man prince in shining armor.
I do hope that too for her. My thought on Jonah though is, this story kind of validates how I felt about him prior, essentially, like that narcissistic / and by the way, insecure thing. This kind of rings true for me with him, but I accept him for, you know what I mean? Like it's not a deal breaker personality traits. People have flaws or they have character flaws or shortcomings, let's say, maybe not even flaws, shortcomings. And I see that and I feel sympathetic for it and accept it. And I still love his art, like I'm still going to go watch his next movie and I'm excited to see what he does next. And it's like, man, I hope that he sorts out that stuff that he's plagued by or working on or whatever it is, or that affected her negatively. And I hope that it doesn't affect the next person negatively. Moving on.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not the devil for bad behavior that he exhibited, and moving on.
I mean, one note, that's the crazy thing. One note for everything is Jonah has to be Harvey Weinstein, who has to be Charles Manson, who has to be that there's no nuance anymore in bad behavior. Like bad behavior has been cranked up to 11. All bad behavior is 11. And so it's just noise of bad behavior.
Yeah.
Like everybody just line them up, firing squad, mow them down. I mean, do people not look at the French Revolution when everyone started getting their heads chopped off as it's because all whispering behind somebody's back became the same as wanting to depose the new government, became the same as all things led to the guillotine. We
are headed that way.
I mean, we're there. I don't know, but I don't know how I guess people have no understanding of history.
Yeah. No, they don't. Well, we've got, are you still good on time?
I'm good.
Sweet, man, because we've got a call that is worth discussing and offering advice on. So let's give some love to our sponsor, Vaer Watches. Vaer is how you spell it, vaerwatches.com.
I have a Vaer story.
Oh, do you really? Let's hear it.
I had my Vaer, so was down in Cabo surfing, stayed off the grid in Cabo. Off the grid entirely. Our place didn't even have air conditioning. I think it was solar powered. Yeah. So one night, sleeping, woke up, the fan was off. And I thought, power's out somehow. It's not on the grid. It was solar powered. So what do you do when it's solar powered and the power goes out, right? I looked at my Vaer watch, glowing brightly, ticking right along, could tell the time. So basically could time how long the bad food or the food was going to go bad in the fridge. Had an idea about that. But as I was thinking though, everything shut down. And when everything was shut down, couldn't charge a computer, couldn't charge a phone. So all this stuff ostensibly is going away. Vaer watch doesn't need any of that. Vaer watch ticking right along. Its solar doesn't break. So I was thinking it was the only thing, literally the only thing that was working in that whole house was my Vaer watch.
Love it. Mm-hmm. That's why in the modern age, the little mechanical things like that are just will outlast everything else. And there's something about the quality of the construction and the build that kind of supports that too. It just feels kind of substantial and timeless, It
felt good. It felt good to know that,
I'm a fan.
Anything could break right now except for my watch. And
you're right though, that lume is bright because I don't wear my watch when I sleep, but I have it next to me oftentimes. And it's like, it will light up the night, even though it hasn't been sunny for hours, it's still working. So
I surf with mine every session. It's always nice to time a session, I think, to actually see. I'll have vague ideas. Oftentimes I won't surf with a watch here, but there I did. Just it was easy. And to be able to think, I actually surfed, 45 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, VaerWatches.com, we'll save you 15% with promo code SPLENDOR15 on VaerWatches.com. Free US shipping, easy returns, waterproof warranty, crazy good reviews. Go check them out. Get whatever you need. Give a gift of a Vaer watch to somebody. This call comes in. Well, let's just address it. I'll let you hear it.
This is for the grit, Dan the weatherman here, and I think there's a big topic that just about everyone's missed for the past couple months, and that is the corporatization of surf forecasting. So Magic Seaweed was this app made out of happiness and magic, and recently they were bought by Surfline, which is clearly powered by the Tears of Orphan. So I was curious if you guys use any other apps, or are we just kind of stuck with Surfline forever? Let me know and keep work.
Keep work.
I like keep work. It's getting better and better.
The other one from the email just said work fellas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? Let's just be honest. Let's just be frank and honest. If you are a lazy man or woman, lazy person, then you just Surfline, right? The other day, clicked on Surfline. I think it was first day back from Mex. Had heard there was no swell in the water. I clicked on Surfline. I saw the 3 to 4, right? I don't think I bothered looking at the cam. I just saw it and I hurried up, grabbed my board, went down. It was 0 to 1, right? Their calls can be so rotten. So if that's what you're relying on, all for it. Great. Lazy. You're a lazy person. Just know you are lazy. If you actually want to forecast, then you use your windy. You use your tide chart. You need to curate like 3 or 4 different sites, and you can actually figure out, your break, how that works with swell direction, blah, 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 blah. I'm never going to be that surfer. I'm always going to be the lazy surfer. I will either Surfline or not Surfline, but I'm never going to figure out my windy, my whatever tide app, my swell app, and my whatever other app, and then how that is going to feed into the bathymetry and direction of my favorite wave.
The ultimate lazy move is to just not check anything at all.
Just go surf.
I mean, essentially, right?
Yeah.
The conversation about corporatization is an interesting conversation in general, right? Whether it's a surfboard brand or a surf clothing brand or the magazines and what's happened there. But the corporatization of surf forecasting doesn't really bother me. Like, I don't really see the downside here.
Well, see, the downside is, I'll tell you. Do you want me to explain the downside conspiratorially, David?
Sure, yeah. They're collecting data? Is that the
No,
downside?
it's that I live close by the beach. You live relatively close by the beach, right?
Yes, yeah.
What if, say, Surfline did some deal with, let's say, San Clemente? And San Clemente was really thinking, trestles we like and stuff, but we want to get people really to be surfing D Street a lot more, or something, right?
Yeah.
And so Surfline says, great, we'll send people there, right? So this is based on a corporate interest, not on, they've juiced the forecast there a little bit, et cetera, what you want to do. Like, again, I think the person who uses Surfline is lazy, so they get what they deserve. You get a lazy... Because I don't think Surfline is bad regionally, right? Like, I can know that maybe there's swell hitting 3 to 4 foot-ish somewhere in North County, San Diego. Is that at my break? Absolutely not, right? Or where I like to surf. So I'm lazy, whatever. I know there's some swell in the water, maybe, and if I care to go find where it's better, then if I have any kind of sense at all, I'll go find where it's better. But yeah. For somebody traveling, though, a long distance to surf, I could see how corporatization of it would, like, if they could be tipping the scale this way or that way, not based on actual quality, but based on for commercial reasons.
I think 2 things you mentioned resonate, but I think for different reasons for me. I think that the corporatization actually makes the product better in this case. Like, surf forecasting has gotten better with money. And so I think that the product that they are delivering, which isn't their real product, by the way, the product of forecasts and cameras are actually better now than they've ever been before, even though they're still wrong oftentimes. But I think that where the slippery slope isn't San Clemente that's going to direct you to a certain surf spot, it's you using their website, the app on their phone, then you got the app on your Apple Watch, and them collecting all of that data to then predict your movements and behaviors and utilize it maybe for their own nefarious deeds like Facebook or something, or maybe not even nefarious, maybe just to sell them to, advertisers. In your example, it was San Clemente, but it might be whatever, Coca-Cola or something like that. So I could see, I don't think they're doing that currently, but I could see them leveraging the data. And so
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're sucking data off everyone.
Well, they're collecting it. The question is, what interest are they using it for? So when I said the product isn't the forecast, you are the product in that scenario, and you're unaware of it, and you think you're using the service for this, but you're in fact what they are monetizing. So I could see that. I could see it all going down that path. But again, that's happening in every aspect of our life. So I'm not giving it a free pass, but I'm just acknowledging that if you want the service of the forecast, which has gotten better via the money that's spent on it or infused into it, then there is a cost, and you are the cost, essentially. Your data is the cost.
There we go.
So I think it's okay. I'm not offended by the corporatization. And like you said, go ahead and log on to NOAA, go ahead and log on to Windy, and get all of the raw information, and you'll probably be better and smarter for it if you're designing your own forecasting.
I mean, my goodness, if you have the time, energy, wherewithal to do that, I mean, that's, to me, it's not like it's Surfline or nothing. It's Surfline or actually doing real work.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking, I live further from the beach than you do, but even you can't see the waves from your house.
No.
So if you're not relying on any of that technology, you have to get in your car and go check the waves. Then I was thinking, man, it'd be nice if we had somebody to give us a real-time report from the actual beach. Even if you live 3 minutes away, I don't want to waste those 3 minutes. And then I thought, there's homeless people at every beach in Southern California. I see a job opportunity here for those homeless people.
Give them a cell phone, man.
Give them a cell phone.
Put the number.
They
post
probably
the number,
already have cell phones.
and just think they could just be sitting there answering all day long. Just it's I don't know, it looks okay.
I mean, honestly, just send me a video. Right when you wake up, a photo or a video with a quick 3-line explanation of what the waves are doing.
This is a genius idea.
Thank
Because the
you.
problem with a Surfline cam is it's always, the Surfline cam is as wrong as the Surfline forecast. However they put not all of them, but many of them, what they're sending back via the wave, via their image, is undecipherable. Like, I don't know, it doesn't look like, it just looks weird. I don't know if it's like the high vantage they use or what it is. It never looks right. I need to be kind of on the beach.
Yeah, the hobo report comes from sea level.
I mean, this is it. Hobo Report is genius.
The hobo report, it's a new business. So what does a cell phone cost? $60 a month or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we can get burners for like 40.
But is it going to send high quality imagery?
No.
Okay, so let's just say $60 a month for the hobo report from one individual hobo.
Yeah.
You can share that report with 12 of your friends and charge them $5 a month each for it.
Yep.
Cover your cost. Boom.
Done and dusted. How much does the hobo get?
A free cell phone.
Oh, the hobo's doing this for free?
No, he's got a cell phone. That's a high ticket item with a monthly service that he can now use. That's his payment. I mean, fine. If you want to pay the hobo additionally, then we can work that into the cost. Maybe we now need 18 friends instead of 12.
I think we bring the hobo in. I think this solves homelessness in Southern California at least.
Around the beach communities, it could.
Yeah, we make the hobo partner. He's an entrepreneur, but he has to live on the beach. That's a problem. So
you don't want to solve homelessness because it then undermines your entire business.
That's true, but except for maybe because I don't need a beach report. I mean, is the hobo doing it 3 times a day? Is he doing morning, noon, and night?
I just was thinking, give me a morning report. I could take it from there.
Really? But I'm going to say, I want my hobo report, because sometimes I want to know, is the wind on it? And I can see the wind here, but what's the wind actually doing to the wave there, right? I need to see my noon hobo report.
Yeah, we might need a network of hobos.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do.
I'm thinking, turn the hobo report into an Instagram account. And that can become you could be an influencer at that point, because not only are you providing a service, but you're also giving jobs to homeless people. So that becomes something that people want to support and follow and get updates on. So, and then you can monetize the Instagram account as well.
I mean, Hobo Report is genius.
Rich and famous off hobos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom.
Love it.
Boom.
In.
Surf equality, don't at me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's take a moment to cut to commercial break. Oh, I've got good news for you about commercial breaks.
What?
LinkedIn is coming back for a year.
Sweet.
I know.
Love it.
They
I love
took
that Eric Logan still has not changed as CEO on LinkedIn.
Oh, he hasn't?
I mean, you'd think, right? If you were a sensible business person, if you're a corporate executive, that you might change your LinkedIn to reflect the reality before you changed your Instagram. But he changed his Instagram and let us LinkedIn sit with
That's
the
funny.
CEO of the World Surf League.
Well, LinkedIn.com/surf, they had a month or 2 or 3 away from us without being partnered. And I think they saw the error of their ways. So they're back on. I think not this week, but maybe mid-month, I think they come back on.
I mean, maybe they knew the World Surf League is going to have a lot of job openings, including the chief executive position.
Or they might have caught wind of our hobo idea and they saw their opportunities right there.
Boom.
So, yeah. So they'll be back. But anyways, let's go to commercial break and then we'll be back with Barrel or Not. All right, Chaz, we're back from commercial break.
Good one.
Are you on Threads?
No. It's funny. Again, talking about social media destroying your brain, I understand that we have a duty to be on social media. You and I, David Lee. There's news there that we have to report.
True.
It's a great way to portal to engage with beautiful, dear friends, listeners, etc. Like, it's an important tool in that way. But I feel I don't have more time or energy. I don't need to be broadcasting my thoughts on Threads. I broadcast them here. I have Beachgrit. I don't need another platform for people to know what I think about something. So I am not on Threads. I will not be getting on Threads. If Instagram didn't have the DM component or way to connect with other people, I would get off Instagram. I would be off social media entirely, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand what the value of Threads is as opposed to the mediums we already use.
I mean, I don't know how, it doesn't make it like a safe space Twitter,
Weird,
I suppose,
right?
is that people are so mad that Twitter's gone Elon that they need a safe space Twitter. I don't get the kick.
I don't get it either, and I'm surprised to see how successful it's been. I just thought when Zuck was announcing it, I'm like, okay, I get that you're going toe-to-toe with Elon. That makes sense to me, but we don't need another social media platform right now. We have plenty of ways to communicate with one another.
For people to praise Zuck, too, is like, oh, he made a better, safer Twitter. He made the Twitter we all want. Zuck is an evil, evil, evil person. Zuck literally helped destroy generations of children's brains with Facebook, with Instagram, with everything. There will be a reckoning. It's funny, I was thinking about this just last night, David Lee Scales, thinking about billionaires. You've seen Zuck all jacked now doing his jiu-jitsu training. Of course, Jeff Bezos is jacked to the nines. Oh, and the show, Dead Ringers, is basically about rich people wanting to live forever. And so I was thinking, not that I can't wait to die, but I don't want to live forever. And thinking, what would possess me to want to live forever? And then I thought, oh, I know why rich people want to live forever. They have done such evil to be rich. The amount of evil they have done to be the richest people in the world, to be billion upon billion. You're either, polluting the world to death. You are whatever. So I think you're scared about the final judgment. So you're just going to kick that ball down the street forever if you can. You will never, if I live forever, there will be no final judgment for me.
Fascinating.
Yeah? Don't
It's
you
a
think?
biblical take on it.
I mean, I think so. I think even the most atheistic, you don't know. Like, if there's a chance, I mean, don't you just want to kick that can if you could, if you're a billionaire?
Yeah, I
Live
guess
forever.
so. I mean, the other thing is that they're just living such a luxurious life that, of course, you want to relish in it as long as you can.
I think their lives are mostly surrounded by paranoia. It's those guys building doomsday bunkers and stuff like that, right? Yeah. It's like a fear. I think it's a oozing fear that it's all going to go away, that something bad's going to happen, knowing that they've done bad, that all of it is just, I think it's not like, I'm on my super yacht having fun. I think it is terrifying.
The other insane thing that you touched on was the 100 million people signing up and sucking at the teat of Zuck, thinking that he's gifting them this safe space as an alternative to Twitter. Like, this is just a benevolent gift for you guys. No, he is the capitalist among capitalists who is completely, you are the product, and you are getting the worst deal of anyone's life. And he's the one raping you.
Elon Musk, for all his ills, did not create social media. He accidentally bought a social media company and is doing a pretty damn good job, as far as I can tell, of driving it into the ground. Zuck was the one who made all this, who made people slaves, who made the Sarah Brady phenomenon of people so addicted to this thing that it is rotting their brains. That's what Zuck did. That's his job.
And simultaneously praising him for rotting their brains.
It's insane.
And saying, thank you, please give me more.
Oh, Zuck, please, thank you. Yeah, Zuck to me,
crazy.
I'm never getting on Threads.
It's totally crazy. Well, the other craziest thing about it to me is I'm on Instagram and there's people posting screenshots of their Threads post on Instagram. And I'm like, wait, now, like, if you're just going to put it here, then why are you over there? Wouldn't you just write that here? But no, you have to. I already follow you on 3 different social medias, and now I have to see all 3 of them in one feed. It's insane.
I mean, and again, none of that takes no time. Like, maybe people who are really adept at it can do it in 30 seconds. But the chunks of day, writing a thread, screenshotting the thread, going over to your Instagram account, uploading it, making a comment there, with blazing fingers, that takes like 30 seconds to a minute.
And then commenting and engaging with everybody who chimes in on various platforms along the way, you're now looking at 10 to 20 minutes.
It's on that one post.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it's insane. All right. Well, hey, we got Barrel or Nah, as we always do. It is, of course, brought to you by buellsurf.com. Beachgrit25 is the promo code to save you 25%. We're giving away a wetsuit at the end of the month for pros in the wild, so look forward to that. First Barrel or Nah comes from a caller.
Hey, great guys. I've got a question, or maybe a barrel or not. And that is naming your kid, or giving your kid a Hawaiian name if you're not Hawaiian. I asked about Hawaiian and Polynesian tattoos a couple of weeks ago. Well, let's move on to names, right? I think since Kai Lenny got popular, I've heard so many Kai names. Same thing with Koa. I hear Koa, 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 but none of them are actually Hawaiian. It could be in reference to the Hawaiian culture. You like that name, that's fine. But if you're not Hawaiian, you're just some like tasty white schlum from nowhere. Maybe you surf, maybe you don't. I mean, should you give your kid that Hawaiian name if they have no Hawaiian blood whatsoever?
Whatever. How about I just tell you what it was about?
Yes.
I'll add it in post-production. Giving your kid a Hawaiian name.
Okay. We ready?
Yep, ready.
Giving your kid a Hawaiian name. This is tough, dicey, spotty.
Well, no other culture has been affected by this like the Hawaiians have. Like, you don't hear like stereotypical Chinese names being given to white kids. Or Native American names given to Asian kids or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
So really the barrel or not here, though, is, let's be honest, it's giving a Hawaiian name to a white kid. Is specifically.
It's usually the white people that are appropriating, for sure. For sure. I don't know a lot of, Hispanic families that are naming their kid.
Chemo?
Yeah, exactly.
Chemo Hernandez?
Exactly.
I'm going to go... Oddly, I'm going to go barrel. I'm going to go barrel. It is very dangerous. Though, all things equal, Kalohe Andino is one of my favorite surf names ever. Little Rascal in Hawaiian, for those who don't know, Kalohe Andino. It's a great name, is it not?
It's a good name.
If I say no barrel, Kalohe Andino, one of my favorite surf names, doesn't exist. So I have to go barrel. I have to
You
think.
can't choose the outlier as the definition of the rule.
But, I mean, okay, I know a lot of koas. I know a lot of, I mean, what's better? I'm going to say, is it better to give your white child, a Hawaiian name or name him Taj?
Hawaiian child a white name or
No,
name
no.
that?
No, your white child a Hawaiian name.
Okay.
Is it better?
Or Taj.
Should it be Koa Smith or Taj Smith?
I like Taj better.
You prefer Taj, it's crazy that Taj Burrow was that influential, that there is amongst they're probably now 18, 19, on down, it's probably like 15 to 21 or something. Part of a generation
Yeah.
named Taj because of Taj Burrow exclusively.
It was just unique enough. You know what I mean? Like there weren't so many other Tajes. Like, I don't know, Kelly. There's too many Kellys at this point. Like you wouldn't want to do. But Taj was just unique enough to where you felt like you were the only one doing it.
I know, but a nod to Taj Burrow as Taj Burrow, you were so influential upon my life that I am naming my child after you.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
mean, I like the name too, but anyway, I'm gonna go for a barrel. I think there's enough. It's real awkward if it's like the sort of new transplant family with money to, like if Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan named their son, like Makua Zuckerberg, then clearly, that is awful. But then again, anything Mark Zuckerberg does is awful. But like a recent transplant rich family to the islands naming your kid whatever, that seems like appropriation. Everything else seems like appreciation, I'm going to say.
Interesting. So I say nah barrel. And the reason why is the only victim here is your kid, essentially, and yourselves. Like, I'm not offended for the Hawaiian people on the appropriation kind of aspect of it. It's just, if you give a kid a name that is so foreign to their existence in the world, it's only gonna hinder their upbringing.
What if they live
and make you look stupid too?
Beachside, Southern California? Because you could say ostensibly it's happened enough. There's not going to be it depends on how Hawaiian here, let's be honest. Like if you name your kid Kamehameha Smith.
Right.
I like that though. Kamehameha's got a little bit of ring, Cam. But I'm going to say the standards now have been accepted into the canon of beach America. And I'll say that those are Koa. I guess it's mostly Koa.
All right, so Koa is acceptable. All other names off the table. All right, well, we'll call that a split. I'm going nah, you're going yeah. The next call actually comes from longtime contributor Jay Martinez.
Oh, David, Lee, and Chaz, this is Jay Martinez calling from the Space Coast. I got a barrel or not. First off, you guys kind of led me astray with the trust in us about the board short washing frequency. I just think your response of never washing them was kind of a Cali-centric type of point of view. Us Floridians were wearing board shorts all day, every day, free balling, and you wear it from start to finish in a day. What am I going to do? My laundry situation is a conundrum. I don't know what to do about that, but this is the barrel or not. Me and my buddy are pulling a strike mission to an undisclosed location. We book the window and aisle seat on all these flights that we're on together. So is this kind of a power move or what? Is two bros independently booking tickets and getting the window and aisle? What do you guys think? Peace.
I mean, yes, let's be honest. If you can, why not? Better is aisle and aisle across from each other. I don't know who wants the window, to be honest. And you're like jammed. Yes, you can lean up against it to snooze, but that's the only thing, the window, and you could peek out at various towns that you fly over. But that is a power move. It's also a selfish move, which, and where I can in society, I like to tamp down the selfishness because somebody's ending up in that middle seat. Like, flights do not, long gone are the days, I think. How many flights have you been on lately, David Lee? You've been on a few.
A few.
Was the airplane jammed to the gills?
Yes.
Every time now. The day and age of, I think, flying with empty seats is over. The airlines, both through technology or cheapness or whatever, rudeness, have gotten such that every seat will be filled. So I think that back in the day, if you say, hey, we can book the aisle and the window, and then nobody will want that one single seat. And so we'll ostensibly have a row to ourselves. That happened 10 years ago. That doesn't happen anymore. So you're forcing somebody in between you, which to me, that seems, yes, you and your buddy are comfortable. Yeah. You're making somebody else uncomfortable. And so one of you should take the hit because your discomfort in that middle seat will be half as much as that other person because you at least will be sitting next to somebody you know. And yes, it's a little more uncomfortable. But let's be honest, the middle seat is only a tiny bit less comfortable than the window seat.
Totally. Well, the window seat you get to rest your head up against if you need to take a nap.
That is the only benefit of the window seat.
But you already said it, and I don't know if we've ever discussed this on air before, but going aisle and aisle is the move.
That's the move because then you're leaving two on each side, so people can still sit like aisle and aisle. If you have that much flexibility in picking seats, aisle and aisle across from each other is the only thing to do.
Even with your romantic partner, that's still great. It's have plenty of, you can talk still, you're close enough to absolutely communicate, and you have just enough space, and you have access to the bathroom anytime you want it without asking anybody to move.
That is the power move that doesn't also put your fellow traveler out.
Exactly. Boom. Solved that one. All right, final barrel or not comes from the photo that Surf Equality posted of me sipping on a drink using straws.
Ooh.
As a male. I think it's a lot of females use straws if they're wearing lipstick or whatever. I think it helps protect, but using straws.
I think, what is it, Crazy Stupid Love, where Ryan Gosling in the news now for his turn as Ken, led a recently broken up with his wife, what's his name from The Office?
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell on a romantic journey, how to get babes, basically, and told him directly, you don't drink from a straw, you look like you're sucking on a tiny schwanz, I think is the exact quote. And I've thought about that, and so have gone away from straws, but at some point in my life, I thought, Ryan Reynolds is wrong there. I'm not going to let Ryan Reynolds dictate my entire style based on what he told Steve Carell in a movie from 15 years ago. I think the straw is totally drink dependent and specific. That little cocktail straw, for example, if you have a nice vodka soda, let's say, you don't start drinking with that straw, right? You hold it off to the side, you drink. At some point, though, you're going to get down enough in the drink where you can't get it anymore, and just a little straw will help, right?
Helps you get the dregs.
Yep. And I think the same will go for, what else? Like your daiquiri, I would imagine, at some point, like that straw was essential to the daiquiri.
Yeah, it's a blended frozen drink.
How else? Yeah, you can get a big mustache every time.
Yeah, exactly.
But, so I will say a drinking with a straw, 100% drink specific. If it is not a blended drink, you never start with the straw, but keep the straw around in order to get to the bottom. Don't ask for a straw. You don't want to pollute the earth unnecessarily. But if that straw is coming and it's there, don't neglect the straw just because you think you're sucking on a tiny schwanz.
It's a complicated straw policy. You know why I don't use straws?
Because you're an environmentalist.
I like turtles. Don't want those little guys choking on a plastic unnecessarily.
Definitely.
They're
Definitely.
already dealing with the 6-pack holders, the little plastic rings. I mean, they've got enough to deal with. Do not infect them with straws.
I'm with you 1,000%. Like, the straws are a gross pollutant that we don't need. If we could get rid of straws as society, all in, go to metal straws only for your daiquiri, et cetera, 100%. I'm right with you. I'm just saying, if the straw comes and it's already there, and you forgot to say, please, no straw, please, don't not use the straw just because you're trying to prove a point of your manhood.
Or trying to listen to Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we solved that one. Well, man, gargantuan show today. 2 hours, 12 minutes, clocking in.
Monster show. Needed it.
But yeah, thank you so much to drinkag1.com/surf. Thank you so much to vaerwatches.com, promo code Splendor15, and also buellsurf.com, promo code BuellGrit25. Anything else you need to share or point people to?
I think that's it. Happy to be back in a monster.
Yeah. All right. Well, great to see you again, and we'll be back next week. But, I think we're going to have a special guest next week, too. But we'll wait and reveal that later.
Phenomenal.
All right. Until then, Chez.
Bon voyage.